Valkie 64, released in 2022 for PC, is a game that simulates a simpler time where you could cut grass for profit and own a home for a reasonable amount of money. Long ago, in the realm of Celissa, the goddess of order and the goddess of chaos ruled together. The goddess of chaos, however, yearned to take over the realm and rule on her own. The army of chaos, the Reptids, and the army of order, the Guardians, fought a gruesome battle. In the end, the army of order won, and the goddess of chaos was defeated. The cost for victory was steep, however, and only one Guardian survived the battle. That Guardian is you. Once again, chaos threatens the realm, and it's time for you, Valkie, to rise again as the last Guardian. The game starts proper inside the Sky Temple. I fiddle with the controls for a bit before having a conversation with a statue who appears to be the aforementioned goddess of order. She tells me that the goddess of chaos has amassed a new army and they have come to wreak havoc across the 4 realms. I'm told that I need to acquire 4 holy gems if I'm to open the path to the Chaos Fortress, but it's suggested that I go to the forest realm first since there are some realms that are more dangerous than others. I cross the bridge and pop into the forest realm and look. I know what you're thinking. This looks just like a certain N64 game that everyone knows about, and I agree entirely. It does look like Donald Duck going quackers. I do a bit of exploring and come across a dojo that explains the game mechanics as well as some scrolls to buy, but I can't do anything with them just yet, so I head out to the first village. The game loop becomes apparent pretty quickly, as the NPCs in town will give you side quests to complete as well as some information about the world. There's shops to visit and secrets to find, but for the most part, you more or less just want to complete the dungeon, get the rewards, and move on to the next locale. I head for the first dungeon, and here's a good time to talk about the combat. You have 2 forms of attacks that can hit horizontally as well as vertically, and they can sort of be chained together, but everything feels super floaty. Like half the time, I'm not even sure if I'm hitting the enemy. Enemies can hit pretty hard, and what makes things kind of frustrating is that their animations are a bit on the jank side, so it's hard to get a good read. You can do this parry move that blocks and counters an attack, and it's pretty fucking broken if you do it right. You have the option to lock onto enemies, which will allow you to dodge, but I honestly didn't find much use for it right away. Combat is largely unnecessary for the most part, aside from a few rooms where you need to kill everything to open the doors, so I just kind of blew by everything while I explored the dungeons. The main objective is finding keys to open doors and eventually land yourself at a boss. There's a few things to find along the way, like heart containers to increase your max health, but it's mostly just grinding for money so you can buy upgrades and such. After a bit of exploring, I find everything I need and come up to the first boss, which is this golem thing. By this point, I've failed enough times in combat to know how broken the parry is, so I absolutely decimate him on my first try. I then grab the health upgrade and the first of the holy gems. I was expecting the game to warp me out upon completion, but no such luck. Looks like I'm hoofing it back through the dungeon. I return to town and the elder gives me a pass to use at the dojo to finally purchase some upgrades. They're pretty expensive and 2 of them exceed my wallet's capacity, so I might have to wait a bit on those. This guy here is selling a house for 450 saffel, which is a steal in this housing economy. I can't really do much with it yet, but damn, it feels good to be a homeowner. That's about all I can do for right now, so I head back to the temple and enter the next area, where I head straight for the next village and take a look around. The elder tells me that he'll give me some new armor if I can defeat the queen of the lava cave. I really want some new armor, so the next major objective is pretty clear. The item shop here sells a haste potion, which is insanely useful because it allows you to move faster both normally and with your sword drawn, but it expires after 1 hit. Unless you have the upgrade from the dojo, but I haven't realized that just yet, so we're off to the lava cave. This is a pretty straightforward dungeon with a ton of spiders and these incredibly loud flamethrowers. The dungeon map seems a little redundant because everything is more or less just a straight line. Before long, I'm at the Spider Queen, and she actually kills me because of some janky animations, and each hit does a ton of damage. Thankfully, there doesn't seem to be any downside to dying aside from losing your potions and health, so I sprint back to the boss room and give her the business end of my parry. Gem 2 in hand, and it's back to the Sky Temple, but not before grabbing my new armor from the Elder. I also remember there's a locked door in the forest area that said it would only open after collecting 2 gems, so I checked that out too. This place is eerily quiet, and there's a gap that I can't quite make it across, but after a little exploring and some sword-based herbicide, I find the magic feathers. These allow you to glide, so now I can make it across that bridge and see what's on the other side. I walk through the hollowed out log and oh baby, it's Kiwi 64. I knew that song within the first few notes. This whole section feels like a level straight out of Super Kiwi 64, which is another great little indie platformer. Give it a shot if you haven't played it. It's pretty cheap. Anyway, the point of coming here is to get the golden armor. It makes you all shiny and gives you a monocle. It also allows you to see the health of enemies when targeting, but I didn't figure that out until way later in the game because the lock-on is much like the pull-out method. I never use it. Off to the snow area. I think it was about here where the aesthetic for the game really hit me. The music is pretty great for the most part, and it has this nostalgic and ethereal quality to it. It really makes traversing the areas that much more enjoyable because I spent about 80% of my time cutting grass, so it's nice to have some good tunes in the background while you do it. In this area, there's a shop and a hot spring for recovering health. If I can defeat the evil sorcerer, this lady will give me a wallet that can hold more money, which means I can get those last 2 upgrades. I head out to do a little exploring. I mean grass cutting. This axe is bigger than my body. It's kind of funny to me how every area just has its own flavor of slime and lizard man. These ones are blue raspberry flavored. Not really much to say about the dungeon itself. It's mostly just pushing switches to open doors and killing dudes to, open doors. I arrive at the boss and it's a big version of these cloaked ghost dudes I've been seeing. He teleports around and has a weird hitbox, so you can easily take some stupid hits due to the slippery floor, but he gets taken out pretty quickly, so I get gem number 3 as well as head back for the wallet upgrade. Time to mow the lawn. I don't know if there's a faster way to get money at this point, but it's honest work, and I earned myself my next scroll at the dojo, which extends my sword combo. Next we're hitting the desert, and I just kind of wander around looking for the way to the next village. Behind the teleporter, there's a locked cave that holds the ancient sword, but that will have to wait. While looking for town, I find the next dungeon and just say fuck it, might as well complete it while I'm here. This place can be a little annoying because the gimmick is that you need to fight 3 generals to unlock a chest for the boss key. The main problem is that there's a wall in the middle of the dungeon that is constantly spinning around to block the doors, so you find yourself blocked off until the wall spins back around. Aside from that, nothing too eventful happens. After killing some dudes and finding the keys, I'm up against the boss, a giant tentacle monster. He goes down like a chump because the parry is absolutely fucking busted, and I gather up the last gem as well as head out to find the town. For real this time. I kinda jumped the gun on the side quest because when I arrive in the oasis, all the stuff is already done. I'm more or less just grabbing my rewards. This dude wants a book. I have a book. In exchange for said book, I get the key to open the door leading to the ancient sword. I also hit up the item shop. They sell a berserk potion which increases your damage and sets your eyeball on fire until you go into water. So like a true gamer, I try my best to avoid showers for the rest of the game. The last thing I do before leaving is grab my reward from the Elder, which are these teleportation wings. These allow me to teleport all over the place, saving a ton of travel time, which would be incredibly useful if I wasn't already at the end of the game. After cleaning up the rest of my quests, I head off to grab that sword. Oh no, it's Valkie. She goes down faster than I was expecting, which is the dream, and I get the ancient blade, which increases my damage. Let's go end this. A path is opened up to the Chaos Tower, so I dive inside. This is more or less just a bunch of locked rooms where you need to kill all the previous enemies you've encountered to progress. I race to the top of the tower and meet up with the final boss, the Goddess of Chaos. She's rocking a lot of health and some janky animations, so I try dodging around her to mitigate some of the damage, but I get fucking destroyed. I do a quick refill on stuff at the shops and hit up the hot spring to recover my health before giving it a second go. This time around goes much better, and even though she still rails me for a ton of damage, in the end she cannot fathom how broken the parry is, and I somehow clutch it out with only a quarter of a heart left. The boss explodes and the tower falls into the ground, where Valkie looks out from the Sky Temple as the credits play. And pause. So that's how the original script went. I'm going to be straight up with you though and say this game sent me on a bit of a wild ride, which caused me to start over. I'd like to present to you what I call Valkie, a story in 4 acts. Act 1 was the normal playthrough. Act 2 is hard mode. Several weeks after my initial playthrough, I decided to pick the game up again. I wanted to be as thorough as I could, and I had read there was another boss if you can beat the game on hard mode, so I jumped back in. Not having played for a bit, I had to readjust to the jank. I died way more than I would like to admit, but the game was forcing me to engage more with the mechanics and take a safer approach to combat. Several of the enemies that were no problem in normal mode were now quite the threat and forced me to think about the game in different ways and formulate strategies. Progress was steady. I was chugging along and slowly remembering where all the secrets were. It was only towards the end of the game that I started having trouble because the enemies hit so fucking hard that any mistakes were becoming costly. When things started getting too rough, I decided I needed a little detour to keep me sane, so I went to the forest to hang out with my good friend Kiwi. Finally, I make it to the Chaos Tower, and this is where things crash and burn. Defeating all the enemies was getting tedious, and they just chip away at your health before the final boss. I do everything I can to play it carefully, but it's rare to make it to the boss with a full health bar, and when I do, she just absolutely fucking wrecks me because of the jankiness of everything going on. I needed a better strat if I was going to do this. There was no way in hell I was going to be able to abuse the parry because the consequences of missing were devastating. What I eventually settled on was that I would need to focus more on dodges than parries, so I cautiously swing to hit her, then immediately dodge to the left and back up. I get her stuck in this kind of loop where she won't attack me until I get close to her, and after chipping away at her health for what feels like forever, she eventually goes down. We're not done yet though. Back at the Sky Temple, this fire person jump scares me and offers to start the final encounter. They're not messing around either. This fight is pretty tough. There's an exploit that you can do to remove all the danger from the fight, but I wanted to do this legit. I died so many times here trying to develop a strategy. I also learned here that I can just save with full health and potions and reload my game instead of running to the hot spring every time I need to recover my health. This late in the game, and I'm still a fucking moron. I really appreciate how the main menu music plays during the fight and serves as a nice bookend to the experience, and after enough trial and error, the boss goes down and I am riding high. What's my reward? A crown that recovers my health. Incredibly slowly. When there's nothing left to do in the game. Thanks. I enjoyed my hard mode playthrough a lot more than I thought I would. Sure, it was difficult, but it was enjoyable to overcome the challenge, and it led me to my next endeavor. There were 2 more achievements that I needed in order to get 100% completion. I needed to beat the game with 3 hearts, and I also needed to beat it with no sword or armor upgrades, so I decided I would try to do both at the same time. This is where I fucked up. By this point, I had enough experience with the game where I was able to kill most of the enemies pretty reliably, and because I didn't need any health upgrades, I could skip every side quest and just focus on the dungeons. As I progressed though, it quickly became apparent that I was in trouble. Enemies started one-shotting me. I would get chipped down constantly. I could take maybe 2 hits on average before I died, and even having a revive potion wasn't helping me as much as I had hoped. I tried so goddamn hard to beat the final boss. I was just trying desperately to figure out the pattern, to get good at the parries, to find ways to damage her as much as possible. Eventually though, I realized the jank was just too much, and unless I spent another 10 hours on this fight, I wasn't getting anywhere. What occurred to me was a bit of a brain blast moment. What if I got the sword and armor, but kept my health low? Sure, I'd have to do another playthrough, but I've been having a hell of a time with this game, so why not? So I did just that. I grabbed the armor, grabbed the sword, and with a bit of ingenuity, I complete the 3-heart run. After this, I just have to beat the game one more time with the basic sword and armor, but this time, it's a victory lap. This time, I can get all the health upgrades. With 17 more hearts and all the strats I've developed, I should be more than good. And I was. I am fucking cruising through this game. It's feeling like a speedrun at this point because I know what I can avoid, what I need to kill, where all the upgrades are, and all I need to do is get there. I'm feeling like a fucking god at this point, just absolutely destroying everything in my path. I cruise straight to the end of the game where even the final boss can't stop my warpath. This playthrough not only solidified this game as a bit of a hidden gem in my eyes, but it also led me to the 4th and final part of our story. How I stole the world record. It was on my final run that I started noticing how fast I was going through the game. It was at this point I decided to look up what the world record was, and at the time of writing, it was about 1 hour and 45 minutes. My eyes lit up. I grinned to myself and said, I can beat that. So I began routing. I kinda half-heartedly watched the world record in the background while I played, and the major thing I noticed was that money was going to be a problem, so I had to figure something out. Then I remembered that I noticed in my hard mode playthrough that you could farm pots for cash in Magmoo Village, and with that knowledge, I set out to try it in a full run. My money strat was golden and saved a ton of time over the world record, so I tried to get a decently clean run to submit, and eventually I got this. 120 flat. I somehow shaved 25 minutes off the world record. Mind you, this game is pretty uncontested, and there's only one other guy running this game, but I was absolutely stoked. My first and probably only world record. I decided to submit the run to the leaderboard, and I faced my biggest challenge yet. The only moderator for the game was also the only guy running the game. I thought for sure he would reject my run and steal the route for himself. Days went by, and my run was not getting updated. Thankfully though, he ended up being a pretty chill dude and left a comment on my run saying he was impressed with my skill, and eventually I ended up getting accepted as the current world record holder. That run is available to watch with commentary, and I'll link it in the description in case you want to check it out for yourself. I strongly encourage others to give this game a shot. I'd love to see more people playing it. It was a wild journey, and I'm happy to have shared my experience with you. In closing, Valkie 64 is a charming little game that evokes a feeling of nostalgia for a bygone era. It nails the feel, but fails in a lot of ways to capture the essence of the games it's inspired by. The combat falls pretty flat, as it's just a janky slapfest and the NPCs don't provide much outside of simple fetch quests. I really enjoy the look of the world, even if it feels a little bit empty. I also quite enjoy the music. It does a lot to make the areas feel more immersive and a little less tedious to explore. I feel like overall, this is hard to recommend because the combat can be kind of frustrating, and it's an extremely short adventure with not much payoff. You can easily finish a first playthrough in about 3 to 4 hours. I'd say give this game a shot if you see it for cheap. There's a lot of fun to be had here, but you have to set your expectations super low. If you can get past its shortcomings, you might lose yourself in the environments and have a great time doing what we as gamers have always dreamed of: touching grass. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble. If you like what I'm doing, feel free to like, subscribe, and all that jazz to help me out. As a little bonus for sticking around, I'm going to show you how to smoke blunts with kiwi. The Steam guide for this is trash. I mean, look at it. So I'm going to show you how I got up there. What you have to do is glide up this tree, but it's super finicky. So when you angle your camera properly and start gliding, hold your joystick at about the 1 o'clock position as you mash the glide button. Once you get to about this point, it can be super annoying to get on this tiny part where the polygons meet. So I recommend going over the tree and then snapping your stick in the other direction so that you're facing this way. I find coming at it from this angle is a little better for getting on the platform. Eventually, when you do get to this point, all you have to do is climb up a little bit and whip around this tree branch and glide over to the tree in the distance. Once you get here, be careful because the floor can make you jump around a bunch, but if you find a spot to plant your feet, you can then talk to Kiwi and chill. See you next time!